I wanted to take a bet on myself, but I was also really scared to give up something very secure. I thought about that. And then I thought about what is the best thing that could happen? I mean, what if this idea scaled? What would that look like? It was so exciting to me to think that there was a chance that something could happen.
What if the person standing between you and your biggest dream is you? Welcome to Vet Life Reimagined. Today, our guest is a veterinarian, entrepreneur, angel investor, author, and founder of Vet to Pet, Dr. Stacy Santi. Stacy's story is one of courage, creativity, and breaking the mold of what's supposed to be possible. From a small town girl who wanted to save her puppies from a lethal disease that had yet to be discovered, to a general practice veterinarian to tech founder who transformed how practices connect with clients. Stacy learned what can happen when you stop letting others define your limits. In this conversation, she opens up about the emotional lessons of entrepreneurship, what it means to stop acting like a girl, and how women in veterinary medicine can lead boldly without losing who they are. If you ever questioned whether you're capable of something more or needed that reminder that courage often starts with a single step into the unknown, this episode is for you. So let's get to the conversation with Stacy Santi. When did you know you were interested in veterinary medicine?
I don't know that I knew it was a career option when I was a little girl, but I mean, obviously, my love affair with animals was the first clue. And me and my little brother got baby schnauzers. Gosh, it was 1979, so I was about 8 years old. My little brother was 6, and my parents bought us these little schnauzers, our first dogs, and they both died within like a few months. And they both had bloody vomiting and diarrhea. And that was before parvo was a known entity. The doctor didn't know what was going on, and they both died. And we ended up getting new puppies. I don't know how they didn't die, but they didn't. And I just so desperately wanted to save them. And I saw the doctor working so hard on my puppies. And I thought, wow, I would like to try to do that one day. Yeah. Yeah, it was parvo way back in the 70s when it first came out. Nobody knew what it was.
That's crazy. We have come a long way in
I know.
a short period of time.
I know, when you think about it like that, it seems like we've always known what parvo was, but, yeah, I just loved animals, so I started collecting them, picking up random cats on the way home from school. I won a duck at the fair and with the little coin toss, and my dad was so good, he let me have any animal I wanted. My mom, on the other hand, she didn't think it was such a great idea, but what could she do?
That was same in my house. Well, so did you grow up in Texas? Because I know you went to Texas Tech when you were in undergrad, but is that where you grew up?
I grew up right adjacent to Texas in New Mexico, about 5 minutes from the Texas state line in a small town, Clovis, New Mexico. And my whole family's from there. I was born and raised there. And I don't know, the normal thing was to just go to college. And if you could either go to A&M or UNM or Texas Tech. And that was about 90 minutes from my house. So I just went to that one. And yeah, it was great. They had a mall and they had trees. I mean, these are all new things for me.
You just don't appreciate like what's around you until you go somewhere so different, even in our own country. It is funny. So was it in college where you started to realize that veterinary medicine was a career, or how did it sort of
Yeah.
come together?
I mean, I was one of those people, I think you could say, blessed in knowing what I wanted to do. I mean, I was on a trajectory. That was the only option for me to be a veterinarian. So I went to tech. I got in, I applied. At that time, you could apply after so many credit hours. So I made my application at the beginning of my 3rd year, and I got in to CSU with 3 years of undergrad, and then I went on to CSU. But I was kind of freaking out at one point because I thought, it had never really crossed my mind, what if this doesn't work out? And I just fulfilled all the credits to go to vet school, and then I'm scrambling thinking, "Oh, crap, if I don't get in, what am I gonna do? I gotta scramble to get a degree in this 4th year." And the things that were available to me were like feedlot manager, it's some sort of weird ag thing. And so I just crossed my fingers and it worked out okay that I got in because I didn't have a backup plan at all.
Yeah. Did you apply to multiple schools? What was it about Colorado?
There was Western Interstate Collegiate Higher Education, WICHE it's called. I think it's still around. And residents of New Mexico, you could trade out students from Colorado State for pharmacy students and pay
Okay.
in-state tuition. So I put all my eggs in that basket. Plus it costs money to apply. I didn't have all this money sitting around to even send in my application. So I sent it to CSU, and that was just always where I wanted to go. And I don't know how that worked out, but I realize now how lucky I was that worked out. But I got in when I was 21 and I graduated when I was 25 with a DVM and got my first job at an ER practice in Portland, Oregon. And I would say clinically, I was right there with everybody else, not knowing what you're doing, but emotionally and like just being a grown up, I was still a baby. I mean, I was 25. I don't know. It was hard at first for sure.
Do you mind saying more? Like what part was the hard part emotionally?
Well, I think the hard part was one of the biggest parts was I grew up in this small town and I never lived in a city and now I'm living in Portland downtown like in an ER setting dealing with all kinds of the general public and I it was there that I learned people lie to you. I had never really been around people that just bold-faced lied and said things like they could pay the bill when they couldn't. In fact, I got called into my boss's office about, I don't know, 6 months after I was hired, and he's like, "Listen, we got a problem. You have a huge accounts receivable going here with these clients." And I'm like, "Let me see," and he gives me their names. I'm like, "Oh, no, he was getting some money from his mom, and he was waiting for his tax return, and he had a lottery ticket." I literally said this. "He has a lottery ticket that is coming in soon." And I realized at this moment that these people were just lying to me. And it was a pretty hard I didn't know that happened. I was really seriously from a small town and people just did what they said they were gonna do. And I still like to believe that in most people, but and that's where people started saying things like, "You're just in this for the money." And I'm like, Wait a minute, what are you talking about? I have no idea really what you're talking about. Me in this for money? You gotta be kidding." I just kind of always took the attitude with it. Like I didn't try to get defensive. I was always shocked that you would say such a thing.
You should have been like, you should see my accounts receivable.
I know the first time I asked for a deposit, like the full deposit after I gotten in trouble with the boss, this guy's like, "You just care about the money." I'm like, "Oh no, actually I don't. I was just in the boss's office last week." I was getting in big trouble because I don't care about the money.
Sounds like you're realizing things about the world, which most people
Mm.
do probably just in this setting. But I mean, what did you decide to do, kind of as your next step?
I love the ER so much. I mean, it was like my own private residency, and it was about 13 doctors, and most of us had less than 5 years under our belt. So it was really kind of fun looking back. We got to do some crazy things, crazy surgeries like torn renal arteries and colectomies, just because we didn't know better. Me and my girlfriend, she's a vet too. We were just talking recently, like we just figured if it was in the book, we were supposed to be able to do it. And we didn't realize we were doing kind of advanced procedures. But it was trial by fire. We had a good run, but I wanted to be closer to home. And I ended up getting married to one of my clients, actually. And we moved to Durango, Colorado, which is closer to New Mexico. And I could be pretty close to my parents at that point. And yeah, started a job here at a kind of your more traditional AHA type 4 doctor practice.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sure you still had cases of where people didn't fully tell the truth, but maybe it was
Mhm,
more of a culture thing. You
mhm. Yeah, I got good. I had to develop my skills in reading people and talking to people and trying to understand how much can you pay and what are your goals for your pet and how can I help you do better here? Like, what are we going to do together for your pet? I started getting pretty good at that kind of communication because if you want to help the animal, you got to go through the human.
Yep, everybody's involved. So I remember in a previous conversation, you talked about that you love being a veterinarian. Sorry, you love being a veterinarian. I didn't mean to make that in past tense.
Mhm.
So as you're in general practice, which you were in general practice for a while, what was it that you just started to really love about it, being a veterinarian in practice?
I definitely the sweet animals for sure, but a couple of things. I do very much love the adrenaline high you get of saving an animal or doing something really like you were able to make a difference. And maybe you made this pet live or you made them feel better. I got such a high off of that. And I mean, I've never done drugs, but I would imagine it must be similar of walking out of the OR on a GDV and just feeling like, wow, I did something with my brain and my hands. And I don't know, I always loved that part. And then I really started loving the clients. Not all of them for sure, but
Mhm.
a lot of people were really good to me. And in fact, I was recently online. I think I was in the Moms with the DVM group, and there was a veterinarian saying something about how this client was railing on her because she was going through something traumatic. I think something serious with her kid. And maybe she wasn't fully present at work. And they wrote some scathing review like, if you can't fully be here, maybe you shouldn't be here. And this veterinarian was really upset because, she's doing her best to hold her life together. And it made me think about when I got divorced and I was here in Durango and I was a hot mess, man. Like, I was really on the edge, and, in fact, a lot of the clients thought maybe I had cancer because 'cause I'd lost so much weight, and I caught one of the receptionists telling the clients once, "No, she's got a parasite, and she's undergoing an extensive deworming process," which was a pretty accurate description of the marriage. Um, but I had so many clients that took care of me during that time. One lady, she brought me red fingernail polish, and she goes, "Just paint your nails red and paint the town red and get rid of this guy, and you're gonna be alright." I still have a lot of clients that I think of fondly that cared about me personally, so I really do enjoy those relationships.
Yeah. Well, and then I don't know if this is innate in you, but you're also really good at observing and kind of challenging of, well, how can we make this happen? What can we do better? And that's kind of the start of how you ended up creating an entire business. So do you
Mhm.
mind sharing the start of what you were seeing as a gap with, just talking to clients and seeing that they needed some help and doing very basic things that could be huge. Going back to your puppy, right? Like, remembering to do these kind of preventative processes.
Mhm. So, yeah, I think it was around 2010. I was just super frustrated during this one afternoon of appointments because I was telling people it's time to get your summer of heartworm prevention. Here in Colorado, right or wrong, we recommend April to October is the key months that you get. And just so happens that's a 6 pack of Heart Guard at the time. So I'm like, you got to get your heartworm prevention. Oh, Dr. Stacy, I still have some from last year. I'm like, what? You're supposed to give it all. And so I told my office manager, Karen, I'm like, Karen, I would like you to send an email. Can't you use our system or whatever? I didn't really know how it worked, but use our system to email our clients that are dog owners on the first of every month and tell them to give their heartworm prevention. She's like, not possible. If they want to set up a reminder, they can log into their pet portal and set it up themselves. I'm like, do you even know how to log into your pet portal? I personally do not even know my pet portal. So I'm like, why does it have to be so hard? Why can't you just send an email? And she goes, it's just not possible. And I thought that was absurd. I really was troubled by this. And at the same time, I'm getting the beginning of these push notifications. This started around 2010, and I'm in between rooms, and a Domino's push notification comes up telling me there's like 2 for 1 pepperoni pizzas tonight. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should get that after work. And then it dawned on me like, wow, that message just made me think of something, changed my thinking behavior. Why can't I send a push notification to my clients to give their heartworm pill? Like, how hard would it be? So that started the journey. And I just started Googling, and that led to one thing, which led to another. And again, like, I didn't know not to. I didn't know it wasn't possible. So I just kept trying till I realized this wasn't happening in the profession. And I needed an app to do it. And so I started working on that.
So did you just Google like app maker or
Yeah.
creator?
And I Googled how to get an app for my business, and it led me to this company. It was called Mobile App Loader. It's just a random online company. Another point in my life where I got so lucky, and I found this guy. He built apps for like hairdressers and automotive dealerships and realtors. And I said, can you build it for a vet hospital? Change some of the words. He's like, yeah, I don't see why not. So I started working with him, and he helped me get an app for my practice in the App Store. It was branded for my practice. I could tell my clients, go and download the Riverview Animal Hospital app. I think at that time, literally, there were maybe 5 to 10 animal-related apps in the App Store at all. This was the first one I had seen for your own practice. And my clients could download it. And once they had it downloaded, they could do things like call us, find us on the map, receive the push notifications, request an appointment. Those were kind of the limits of it at that point. But I could send a push notification, and oh my gosh, I started doing it kind of regularly. There's a plague outbreak here in Durango. Us in South Africa, we have the bubonic plague here. So give your flea medicine. And there's a pet food recall. And we have a cancellation this afternoon if anyone needs to get in. And people loved it. And so I just started adding features. I started looking around my clinic and saying, what other stupid work things are we doing that technology can maybe do for us? And the next one we went after was the medication refills, because that was a big bottleneck for us. People would call or walk in at the most inopportune times, usually lunch and end of day, and need us to go count all their 180 thyroid pills. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put it in the app. They could make a request through the app. And I made this whole program. If you use our app to request your meds and you give us, 48 hours, we'll give you $5 off your prescription. And I raised my prescription handling fee $1 across the board to offset that. And it started working. The phone would ring less. The people would start being retrained because they were getting a perk too. It turns out it's easier for them as well. And that was kind of where it took off. And then I started telling other people, veterinary colleagues, what I was doing. And they'd say, can you build an app for me? I'm like, maybe. Do you have a logo? I'll try. That's how it got started.
That's really cool. So, I mean, it sounds like the pet parents were really liking this feature. And I mean, I love how innovative you were about the different things. Like so we have a cancellation. I wish my dentist did that. Like, because sometimes it's really hard to get in, and and that's a great way to keep your schedule full where you want it. And I mean, like, this is kind of blowing my mind. I think this is really cool. So I think you did some other features too that was really intriguing. And one was a loyalty program too, because we're in a pretty competitive area. And so that, I think, is what was really starting to intrigue other people too. So what was the loyalty program?
Well, I had this experience where I needed my oil changed. So on my one day off of I get one day off every 8 days, something crazy, I would drive all the way to Jiffy Lube, which I live outside of Durango, so driving to Jiffy Lube is a good solid 30-minute drive, and sat there and waited and had my oil changed, then drove home, and I was noticing my behavior because literally 2 doors down from my clinic is a oil change shop. I could have just had him do it while I was at work, and I'm like, "Why am I wasting my precious time on my day off doing this?" Well, it's because I had a punch card,
Yeah.
and after you get so many oil changes, you get a like, in maybe 4 years, I was gonna get a free oil change, and I'm like, "Wow, this really works," and I thought, "Can I put a loyalty thing like this in the app for my clients?" So I worked with that company, and they made a little punch card in the app, and you just would scan a QR code, and it would put the little punches in your app. So I came up with this thing, like, every $100 you spend, you get a punch, and after you get at that time, I said 12 only because the iPhone 4 was the size, and it would only hold 12 punches. People thought I was very crafty or, analytical about how I came up with that number. I'm like, "No, it was just the size of the phone was all that counted." I said, "Once you get 12 punches, we'll give you a $100 credit." And it went off the rails. I can't even tell you how addicted people became, and that actually is when I decided, "You know what? I think I'm onto something. I'm gonna quit my job, and I'm gonna go Shark Tank all in on this and see if I can make a go of it." Because it was a way for me to use positivity to drive more business to my clinic, and it was a triple trifecta win, right? Like, the patient got seen more, the client was happy, and we were happy making more money and, staying busy at the clinic. This was also during kind of the recession where clinics were slowing down. We were blowing up.
Well, I mean, you weren't an owner at this clinic, right? Okay.
No, I was not a owner. I actually moved here to become the owner, and then, right, we decided I'd work here a year for the doctor, and then we'd decide if we like each other, and then I'd buy the clinic. And we got along great. He is one of my most valued mentors in my life, but at the one-year mark, I was getting divorced, and MVA came in with a huge offer, and he sold to corporate. Which I don't blame him, I get it, but he ended up selling me the land and the building, so it worked out better for me. Another one of those things where you have to go Garth Brooks and thank God for unanswered prayers because it worked out better for me, and I became, after he left, the medical director, the managing veterinarian.
Wow. Okay. So the reason why I was going there is, you know, what did they think when you came to them and said, "Hey, I want to do this app for our clinic"?
Mm, they weren't super excited, to be honest. They didn't really care about it. They thought it was honestly, I told them at this one big meeting at corporate mothership headquarters, we should be building apps for all of our practices. And a few of them were of the opinion that smartphones will never become a thing because they're too expensive to have the monthly subscription for data. And I'm like, whatever. We're all sitting at this boardroom and every single one of us has our phone here. Like, it's going to be bigger than you could even imagine. But I had a really great regional boss, and he kinda gave me a lot of leash to do things. Plus, I had a very high performing practice during the recession, and I think sometimes you can be a little crazier if you're performing for them. If you're underperforming, you probably get called to the office, but I was doing well at that time, thankfully, so I got a little bit more room to try things.
Well, that's fantastic. And you got to the point where you're like, I see that this works. There's a need, there's a win-win-win. I am ready to go full in on this. So what was that transition like?
It was kinda scary, and in the book I wrote, "Stop Acting Like a Girl," a lot of this came from the I wanted to take a bet on myself, but I was also really scared to give up something very secure. I mean, I was making good money, I had great clients, a comfortable life, and, I'm like, "What should I do?" And I just did a lot of soul searching, and I thought, "You know what? I'm not burning bridges, I can always go back, and why not take a chance on myself? What's the worst thing that could happen?" Okay, I thought about that. I could maybe we have to sell our house and downgrade. Maybe I can't, you know, go shopping or go to Starbucks as much. Maybe I could I stomach these things? How far could I take it before I knew it was time to throw in the towel? I thought about that. And then I thought about what is the best thing that could happen? I mean, what if this idea scaled and what would that look like? It was so exciting to me to think that there was a chance that something could happen. So my husband was like, you seem very excited about this idea. So I'm game if you're game. So we went for it.
Now, how many clinics did you have as clients at that time?
So when I first started, I also consider this a sign of the universe is when I turned on my website from my app company. I really didn't know how to launch a company at all. So all I did is another dad on the kids soccer team. We'd sit in the bleachers and watch the kids play. He designed websites. So I'm like, hey, I need a website. Can you build me this website for this little app thing so people could know about it? He's like, okay. So he did it. And I turned on the website, and the next morning, I had a customer. Can you even believe it? The guy Airdrie Animal Hospital, this like, Dr. Dave in Canada signed up, and I just could not have gotten a bigger sign from the universe that I was on the right track. Now, it was months before I got another but I just started speaking at little local events for my Zoetis rep. And every time I'd speak, I'd get a handful of customers, and I just started growing. I think after the first year, I had 12, and then the second year, it doubled. And then, I mean, I'm still working at the vet hospital. I didn't decide to fully quit until I had about 100 customers. And then I quit the vet job 100%, and I started building a team.
I think you got to get out there sometimes, and people have to see what it is and the value that it brings because, you know, I don't know if we love this term, but an influencer in the veterinary industry, Eric Garcia,
Mhm.
kind of pushed out a plug for you at a conference one time, and that
Mhm.
also seemed to drive a lot of people. Did that happen before or after you had decided to go all in?
I think it was when was that? It was in the very early stages. I mean, I saved after 2 years of savings. I got enough money to go to my first trade show, right? So I got a booth at Western Veterinary Conference. I thought things are gonna start happening now, right? When you're new, you get the booth at the very, very back, and I didn't have enough money to get a professional booth, so I sewed my booth up with my sewing machine, and my husband made me a little podium, and my girlfriend came with me, and we were standing there, and they opened the trade show floor, and here come the people. We're way back there, so it takes, like, 30 minutes for the first person to come, and this guy walks up, and he looks at it, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It's an app. Your clients can contact you. You can contact them," and I was so excited, and he's like, "This is the dumbest idea I've ever heard." And my girlfriend, a total mom move. She puts her whole arm in front of me, like when you're stopping the car rapidly, and she sort of pushes me behind her, and she tells that guy, "Move along, please, move along, off you go." Well, it was around that time Eric got wind of what I was doing, and he was always on the forefront for cutting edge things, and he was working with his old practice in Florida, and I built the app for him, right? He was in the first 10 I ever did. And, he loved it, and he started telling people, and Brenda Tasova, she was the same one, another big influencer, telling people about little me, and I don't know, they really changed things for me.
Yeah. Well, that's a message to go all the way in the back of the conferences. Actually,
Mhm.
do explore those things because some pretty amazing things are up there. And be careful what you say as a a dumb idea because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are like kicking themselves that they did not see what you thought. So, well, very cool. So Vet to Pet is kicked off. I think it was official around 2013, but you're in it for a few years. You're growing. Things are going well. Are you thinking that you may one day sell? What's your future look to this?
Yeah, I'm not good at that sort of thing really at knowing I'll just go with what's fun. So I was having a blast building a team. I had like, I don't know, a dozen engineers working for me in Serbia who turned out to become some of my greatest friends. I was building a team here of veterinary managers, technicians, veterinary people to help me on the ground here with the company with sales and training and implementation and really enjoying it. Well, I'm quite naive. I didn't realize you could raise money until later on in the way later in the program. I was just using my own money, and my mom and dad had given me a little money, and one of my clients actually had given me some money right when I quit my job to afford payroll and stuff. But at this point, I needed some real money. Things were heating up. We had Pet Desk on the scene, Vitus Vet, Ally DVM, like things were happening. So I got to get some real money. So I ended up trying to raise money. And during the course of that, VetSource said, well, we kind of want to buy your company. And I like couldn't believe it really. And I thought, okay, well, let's go then. And I brokered a pretty robust deal for myself that it was a 3-year acquisition. And yeah, so I ended up selling it it was from 2019 to 2022, which again, like pretty blessed is during the pandemic when things are going to shit. And who knew how it was all going to go. But they bought the company and they took it under their wing, and then they've tried to take it further with their home delivery service. But I worked for them for about a year. It was no big shock to any of us that I don't work well for corporate, like big companies. I'm a small team girl. So I decided to quit and retire and see what the world had to offer me after that.
Yes, based off of your story, it makes sense that, I mean, you even said you kind of follow the fun, and it seems like it's done very well for you. And so sometimes there's people along the way that help us out. And again, I want to talk more about your book. Like I said, you said you got a pretty good deal from Vet Source. Did you talk to people about how to do that? Because I like to put myself in people's shoes sometimes, like, would I know what to do? Would I, like, have the guts to, like, make a bold offer?
Mhm.
Or I'm just curious, like, did you get help from lawyers? Or at that point, had you gained a lot of self-confidence to put forth a pretty good offer for yourself?
I mean, I think for me, the major theme of my life is I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. But I have learned that almost everybody is willing to help you if you ask. And you find people that know the information you're lacking. I have just had the best luck of finding people that are, oh, sure, I'll talk with you or I'll tell you what I know. So, some key players for me were my buddy Martin Trabb Warner, who ended up being my business partner in Vet to Pet. He had started Vet Success and sold that to VetSource too. He's a brilliant businessman. I had other key advisors like Beth Green at Brief Media and Dan Holland at Patterson, and just a handful of people that were always so nice to help me think about things. And, one day I write about this in the book. Early on at this company, I was having breakfast with Martin, and he's like, well, what's your number? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, what's your number for your life? And I'm like, I've never heard any, like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Break it down for me. And he's like, well, everyone should have a number of knowing how much money they need to live out the rest of their life in the way they want. I'm like, you're supposed to have this number? I didn't know. So he's like, it's just math. Go home and do your homework. Like, you have a company now. If someone were to buy it, how much would you sell it for? That's your number. And I'm like, "Well, it's worth nothing. I just started it." He goes, "But someday, if you play your cards right, maybe you get your number. You should always be having know what your number is." So I went home and I did my homework. I'm like, "Okay, what kind of life would I live? Where would I live? How many vacations a year would I wanna take? I'd wanna pay off my parents' house. I'd wanna help put my nieces and nephew through college. I have a couple of great stepboys I wanna make sure they're covered for. My husband, what would he want?" We just did this math and I came up with a number. This is roughly how much I would need today to get me to the end of the line. And so when they asked me, "What would it take to buy your company?" I'm like, "Guess it would take this amount of money." And I have my number. And you know what? Once Martin turned me on to that idea, I can't recommend it enough for everybody, but especially women, to have some idea of how much money you need to get to the end of the line, because it just helps you when you're negotiating, when you're making decisions for your life. How am I going to get a little bit closer to that number? And when you're fighting for your future self, it's a little easier, I found, to ask for big money.
I like that, fighting for your future self. I tell people all the time to be thinking about your personal values and all of those things so that when things come up, you at least have done that introspective work and you can be able to answer confidently and make good decisions. But from a financial side of things too, I think it's a very good principle to have because that way you've done your homework, that you're not like, oh, I don't know. You do know. I think that's great advice that I really don't hear people talking about in our industry.
I know. I don't know if it's a girl thing or just a vet thing, but if you think about how old do I want to be when I retire? How much am I going to owe on my house? How much will I have in my 401k at that point? You can do all this. It's just math and spreadsheets. And then you figure out, all right, I got maybe I got 20 years left before I hit that age. This is how much I need to be making every year. Now, if you're in a job where you're not going to make that much every year, you got to figure out, okay, do I need to work on some investments? Do I need to find another job? Do I need to freelance a little bit? You've got to figure out, like, or do I need to scale back my dream? But the worst thing is to get to that age of retirement and now you're just like, well, what do we got to work with here? When your earning years are past you. So like, gosh, if you're in your 30s, 30s, 40s, this is the key time to be thinking about that.
Well, that would be me. So, all right. Uh, well, it's good to again, good to think about that. And you were able to sell your company at a time where probably was before you thought that maybe you would retire. That's fantastic. I know you said you didn't really forward think more than I guess a retirement. But what did you do after that? Because I love listening to entrepreneur stories and everything. And I hear a lot of people say that once they sell their business, they feel very empty. Like they don't
Mhm.
really know what to do. So I'm curious what your experience was.
Yes, I was prepared for that. It's called founder's depression. And there's a lot of stuff written about it. So I had read ahead and I was kind of, okay, bracing myself like I should be prepared for these feelings. I should be prepared for the urge to jump back into something. There's a few things to watch out for on myself that I need to be nice to myself about and not put pressure on me to do something. The first thing you think is like, I'll go back and get my vet job tomorrow. And I've always worked. I've had a job since I was 14. I've never really not worked. So I decided my plan for me was to give myself 6 months of no decisions. I said, I'm just gonna give myself time to kind of percolate, kind of simmer on the stove a little, kind of see what comes out of this. People were offering me different jobs, and I have like always ideas of, oh, I could make this company or that company. And I decided, okay, I'll write all these things down in my notebook, but I'm not going to make any decisions for myself for 6 months. I'm going to be quiet. I'm just going to rest here. I've actually never done that. I've never just sat and try to figure out what to do with myself. It became quite apparent I have no hobbies. I have no ability to talk to anybody about anything other than pets or technology. Um, I'm not a well-rounded person. I had lost some friends in the shuffle, just like they were still there, but I hadn't put time into building those friendships or visiting people or calling people. Good friends, those relationships had kind of fizzled a bit. So I just started putting some time back into that and figuring out how to relax, how to not be a type A controller, how to maybe let myself off the hook on some of my pressure I put on myself for being some kind of producer. And yeah, so after 6 months, I renewed myself for another 6 months. And I so far have renewed myself like 6 times. That's where I'm at. I decided though, because I can't do nothing, I decided to write the book in the first year called Stop Acting Like a Girl. These were just ideas in my head that I had been nurturing for years, years and years of managing women and working with women. And so with the encouragement of my mom, I decided to try to put these things down on paper. So that was fun. Currently, I've got a Substack I just started the other day for cooking. I'm trying to just publish five-star recipes for everyday people. I love creating, even if it's in the kitchen. So, yeah. And I work a lot with the Street Dog Coalition here locally. I found that is enough for my little veterinary heart.
Yeah, I mean, you did a lot of things. Just knowing you and hearing some of them, you've been a host on multiple podcasts that ranged everything from veterinary to entrepreneur to beyond. I know that you've started to work with Vein, which for those who don't know what that is, that's the Veterinary Angel Network for entrepreneurs, which is really cool. I know that's a really exciting group of individuals who wants to support people that are doing cool things like you
Mhm.
in the animal health space. And then yes, you did say that you love being a veterinarian. And at that point, going to a full-time position didn't really feel like that was the right decision either.
It's so hard. It is so once you get away from day practice or ER practice, but even day practice, it is so taxing. I you know, the irony of the whole thing is ended up making the bulk of my money on this startup that lasted about 10 years, but I have never worked a lick as hard at that company as I did at being a veterinarian. Like, I worked and to all the vets out there, I worked just like you. We work our butts off. And it is the most underpaid profession, I think. Maybe next to being a teacher. I don't know. That looks like a really hard job too, managing all those kids. But yeah, I can't for the life of me figure out why we aren't making as much money as a software engineer.
Mm. And I bet you've met quite a few of them at this point, so you you know that world.
I know that world. And I mean, it's a hard job, but it is even being a founder and entrepreneur is nothing compared to being a day veterinarian, a regular GP vet. Like, it is the hardest job. And I couldn't go back to it because I actually know how much you have to give of yourself to do it. And I'm like, okay, I can't. I did it for 20 years. And it took me some personal reflection to let myself off the hook to say, I don't have to do it forever.
And I'm sure that there were so many different skills that you learned as being a veterinarian that supported you in every other step of the way as being an entrepreneur. The creative aspect of it, the hardworking aspect of it, the you got to be passionate about it or you just can't keep going kind of part of it. But
And also I mean, for me, failing a startup, okay, whatever. No one's gonna die. Like, I've had patients die, like, from my own actions. I have caused patients to die from mistakes I've made surgically and otherwise. And the gut-wrenching heartache that that brings to you is nothing compared to like, a startup feeling, whatever. I mean, I can get past that. I've gotten through what I'm trying to say is I've done harder things. Being a veterinarian is really like, that is the hardest thing for me. So, I knew what's the worst thing that can happen. Oh, it closes, we lose money, okay, fine. Nobody died.
There is a book, We Do Hard Things, and, you have to be careful with that phrase because you don't wanna use it like a flag of, martyrism or martyrdom or whatever the
Oh,
word is,
yeah.
being a martyr. But, speaking about book, let's go back there because it's you said you wrote the book pretty soon after you had sold the company, so you've been thinking about these things for a while.
Mhm.
So, do you mind sharing what was the story? What were some of these things that you had been seeing? Maybe it was yourself, maybe it was in other people that started, bringing these thoughts on this topic together.
Well, I was the first class in '96 at CSU that was where they crossed the line where there's more women than men. And so I've been around more women there. I get my first job in Portland, it's like 80% women. I get my next job in Durango, it's like 90% women. I start my tech company, we're 95 plus percent women. I've just always worked with women. I don't know. It's just my comfort place, I guess. Not by any resistance to work with men. It's just our field is mostly women. And then when the clinic sold to MBA and I'm the managing veterinarian, I'm suddenly interacting with men on the monthly level with my clinic reviews. And I'm traveling to corporate mothership where it's mostly men in the executive suite roles. And then I start my company, I start raising money. Now I'm, like, literally the only girl in the room many times at these, like, meetings in Vegas and at VMX, or trying to broker deals. I'm like, "Where are all the women?" Well, there are a few in there, and I started really paying attention to what they do. Like, what are they doing that's different than the other women? Because if you think about just the math of the situation, if we're predominantly, I don't know, how many women do you think? What do you think the percentages are for women I in the work field for veterinary medicine? Like 75,
I think
80%?
we're maybe not quite 80 yet because that's close to what it is in vet school. So I think we're still a little lagging, but yeah, it's in the 70s for sure.
So don't you think at least 30 to 50% of the executive roles should be women for our own profession? Like, where are the women? And so I started really, I'm an observer kind of in a weird way, like Seinfeld. And I'm like, what are these ladies doing that are different? Well, they are making decisions. They're not being wishy washy on stuff. They're saying, this is what we're going to do, and here's the timeline. They know their numbers, like, they are very well versed on the financials of the company and the industry, and they know their information. They share their opinions. They're not sitting there quietly in the corner letting other people talk over them. They are asking for what they want, like, "Here's what I want for my department," or, "Here's what I am going to be lobbying for this year." They're just calling it straight up, and they're really not apologizing for being there. They're not being meek, they're not being like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I is this an okay time to talk?" They're just holding their head up high and walking in and doing it. And I noticed, like, that seems to be the recipe for success if you wanna get up there. And the women that are struggling to not so much feel confidence, because confidence is a weird thing, you don't get it till after you've done it, but the belief in their self that they can do it, that they are okay to share their opinion, to say what's on their mind, to ask for what they want, to ask for the money, like, these are the women that are held back.
Mhm. Well, and on the flip side, because I know that the two big things that you said I would really love to talk about was this mentality. And I actually see the second one as being part of it too, is also the ability to say no.
Mhm.
'Cause if you know what you want, like if you know your number, if you're able to ask what you want, at the same time, you can also be able to confidently say no to things. So did I completely like bring those together inappropriately? But I
No,
kind of
you're
see them.
right. You're
Yeah.
right. Like, we are so women in general, I think, are so bad at saying no. And it's because we're actually exceptional at saying no if we don't feel we're qualified. But if we're qualified to do something, it's almost impossible for us to say no because we know we can technically do it. We know, yes, it's possible. I could do that. And we just are so empathetic, I find, to everyone's plight. And we also have this undying need for people to like us. It seems to be quite different on the male side of the world. Like, my brother, he's a international business guy. My husband, he's like, they're all like, "Yeah, whatever. You don't have to like me." This is what I'm saying. And I'm always trying to be more in that mindset because, you aren't pizza. Everybody isn't going to like you. And if you wanna really get what you want, there are going to have to be some things you say no to.
I want to challenge this just a smidge and not necessarily challenge. Maybe it's just to kind of bring it to the right level of where people can think about this. Cause again, I was listening to a podcast. That's how I start a lot of things. And the individual, they were having this conversation about like, where are the women in leadership? And this is not just veterinary medicine. This is in other
Oh, yeah.
areas of
Everybody.
the world too, right? And, one side and both of them were men, I will just say that, so I think that's kind of funny. But, one of them was all women, it's like, "Where are the women? Women should be leading this country." And then we were talking about how they can do this, and so there is that perspective of, well, be more confident, like the men, right? Like the men. And what this other person wanted to highlight is what I'm saying is, yes, I do think women need to be in leadership positions because they're women. And some of the unique things about women are really, really important in leadership. So
Mhm.
it's not 100% copy what a man does.
No, no, no.
It
Right.
is, yes, like, know your worth, get some confidence, yes. At the same time, we're not saying be a man. It
Right.
is be confident in who you are to bring the value into those important places. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but the where we're at right now, if you in many of these situations, you do have to act a bit more like a man just to get in the door. And once you're in there, then you can use your, female powers, which I find to be a lot around intuition, a lot around reading between the lines, a lot around getting what you want by manipulating the situation. We're very good at these skills as women. Like, we're like, the guys don't stand a chance, to be honest.
People.
To get in the room, I find you have to play the game a little bit. And, it's not easy, right? I know a lot of my girlfriends are like, I want no part of that. And I get it. But if you do want a part of it, I think you have to be a bit bold. You have to put your crown on and walk in the room. And you have to speak with certainty. Shed all those demons in your head about, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not as knowledgeable or as savvy as the other people in this room. Because what I have learned, you guys, is like they're no different. They are not thinking more brilliant thoughts than anybody else. They they are just showing up and they're saying what they think. And I really am encouraging the ladies to do it. I will say though, there are downsides to doing this. There are some downsides. You're not gonna be as well liked as you might be. Some people might say you're bossy or bitchy or demanding or emotional, or I've been called what's the other word I've been called? Irrational, very demeaning words for behavior that if a man did would be probably praised. Dramatic. I think that was used on me once by a upper person. Whatever. I'm here. I'm I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. And I think, a little bit of some circles back to understanding what is important to you. And hopefully, especially when you get older, this is a little bit easier to do. I will go ahead and say that it's a little bit easier to realize what your values are, and you learn over and over again that there's no way that you're going to make everybody happy, and there's no way, even if you are the sweetest person on the face of the planet, that everyone is going to like you. So you learn that lesson. Hopefully, learn it quick and get over it. And then you know your values, you know what your goals are. And so hopefully those things are easier to overcome. And those are the things that can guide you into being confident, get into the room and make a difference if that's where you want to go.
And surround yourself with people that love and cherish you for exactly who you are. Like those are your people, right? The people in the boardroom are probably not who you should be looking to validate who you are.
Mm.
You've got to find that somewhere else close to the heart, close to the home. Like you give yourself a super strong network. And I like to personally think of all the women that have gone before me that have done much harder things to get us to where we are today. I think of them when I'm in a situation that is challenging and I'm having to really be bold. I think of what would those ladies think of me? I better do my part.
You make me think of a story. I'll say it real quickly because I know we're almost out of time. But my husband and I had taken my stepdaughter to one of those military air museums. So it's all the old planes and everything. And when you walk in, there's that welcome table, and there's an older woman that's sitting there. And we start talking with her about the museum, and she sees Alana and she asks her, what she's interested in and what she wants to be when she grows up. And Alana was like, well, I'm actually thinking about being a pilot. And this lady said, you go, girl. Because when I was your age, I thought the only thing I could do that was even remotely close to that was in chemistry. And so, like, just thinking about the women who worked really hard to get to where we are, and just think of the possibilities that are out there for everyone in general, but especially, for those that have had to fight along the way. It does kind of also broaden it to where, like you were saying, you were fighting for your future self. You're fighting for your family. You're fighting
Mhm.
for more people, the people that love you and support you and know that your work is going to impact a lot of people. And so I think that's also that bigger picture that comes into play that helps us fight a little bit harder.
Oh, you said it perfectly.
Well, I do like to end on one final question. And I would love to hear after this great conversation where you go. But what is something that comes to mind when I ask you, what is something you're really grateful for right now?
Hmm. I am so grateful for my family. I have a great family. I know not everybody is as lucky to say that, but maybe your family is the one you were born to, or maybe they're the ones you created that are not your birth relatives. I think that's equally powerful. But I have a great support system that has given me the freedom to try things when they seem crazy, and they've supported me, and they've also held me accountable when I've gotten off rails a little.
You need those people.
Yep. Those same people, but, yeah, it means the world to me to have friends and family, mostly family, that is there with me.
This was a very thought provoking conversation. I'm very curious to hear your reflections. Feel free to text your thoughts and questions with the link in the show notes. Also, in the show notes, you can find the links to her book, Stop Acting Like a Girl, and other references from the episode. I'm very excited to read her book myself. And if you want to learn more from Stacy, she has a column in today's Veterinary Business, so you can watch out for her writing there. There were so many great takeaways from today's conversation, but three big ones that stand out to me. One, be careful who you let define what's possible for you. Not everybody sees what you see, and that's okay. Keep fighting for your future self. It can be challenging to stand up for ourselves. So think of it as fighting for your future self. And finally, there's a beautiful quote by Nelson Mandela that I think kind of summarized this take home. His quote is, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." So courage doesn't mean never feeling afraid. It means doing the thing anyway, because growth lies on the other side of fear. Thank you for listening and being here with me today. I want to do a special thank you to Dr. Kelly Cooper, who supports us on this platform, Buzzsprout. And you can too through another link in the show notes. Definitely check out those show notes. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a colleague or friend who could use a reminder that their next chapter might be bigger than they can think. And as always, let's keep reimagining what's possible in veterinary life.